second timeout.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny, and welcome to ESPN Classic's Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame, a series that takes a fresh look at sports personalities who are remembered largely for their mistakes, controversial moments, or questionable decisions. Within a span of 14 straight division titles, the Atlanta Braves won the National League pennant 5 times. Within those 5 World Series, only once, in 1995, did they emerge as world champions. Over the next half hour, we'll give you the top 5 reasons you can't blame Bobby Cox for Atlanta winning only 1 World Series. But before we begin our countdown, let's take a look at the Braves' remarkable run that began in 1991.
The Atlanta Braves have won the West!
I have a daughter that's 14. For her entire life, every year of her life, they've won the division. She doesn't know anything but the Braves as a winner.
It's a perfect 10 for Atlanta. 10 straight division titles. Unparalleled in professional sports history.
You have other players coming to town and look up the left center field up over the stadium club out there, and they're shaking their heads in awe of what we've been able to accomplish.
Go ahead and celebrate, Braves. No one expected this one. A 13th straight division championship for the Atlanta Braves.
In this day and age where teams change so much and players change teams, where the economics of the game make it harder and harder to keep teams together, you know, it's really remarkable that they've been able to do what they've done.
Let the celebrating begin, folks. 14 consecutive division titles for your Atlanta Braves.
It was an accomplishment built and sustained by superior pitching, anchored by the trinity of Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and John Smoltz, who combined to win 6 Cy Young Awards with Atlanta.
We established a cornerstone of pitching that gave us a chance every year. With whatever kind of lineup he surrounded us with, we were always in the game.
Greg Maddux pitched a beauty here today.
If you look at the numbers they put up in the mid-90s, I'll always tell you that's the greatest pitching run in the history of baseball.
The Braves won more than 100 games in 6 seasons. But after winning it all in 1995...
Yeah! The Atlanta Braves have given you a championship!
They claimed just 2 more pennants over the next 10 years.
You got this team that's so beautiful during the course of a season, and then comes October, and they get amnesia. And it's like, who are these guys?
It's kind of like having a beautiful girlfriend that you just really don't trust anymore because you know she's going to break your heart.
After finishing in last place in 1990, Atlanta made it to the 1991 World Series. Up 3 games to 2, the Braves and Twins were tied at 3 in the bottom of the 11th inning in Game 6.
I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that they were a better baseball team than the Minnesota Twins. They made some serious mistakes.
One of the few major gaffes that Bobby Cox ever made in his entire life as a manager was putting Charlie Lebrand in to face Kirby Puckett. I mean, what was Bobby Cox thinking?
Puckett swings it into the blast! Deep left center, way back! He's gone! Catch your ball, Kirby Puckett!
Game 7, an epic duel between Smoltz and Jack Morris, ended in heartbreak for the Braves.
And once again, the Minnesota Twins are baseball's world champions.
In 1992, Atlanta's 4 losses in the World Series were all by 1 run.
The Blue Jays win it. The Blue Jays are World Series champions.
And in 1993, the Braves were stunned by Philadelphia in the NLCS.
Swing and a miss, struck him out! Phillies are the 93 National League champions!
To me, the worst was 93. We had all kinds of opportunities against Mitch Williams late in games. We just couldn't get over the top.
I'm in the bathroom over the toilet, and I'm like, I'm not throwing up, but I'm like dry heaving, and my wife walks by and goes, "You have a problem. You have a problem." And I'm like, this is what the Braves do to you.
In 1996, a year after defeating Cleveland in the World Series, the Braves were poised to capture a 2nd straight title.
We came out of Yankee Stadium with a 2-0 lead and a 6-0 lead in Game 4, and managed not to be able to hold on to that.
High fly ball hit deep to left field. Andrew Jones back to the warning track to the wall. This ball is gone.
That's a series we definitely should have won. You go into New York and win the first 2 in New York, there's no way you should go back to New York. You better get New York at home and beat them 2 out of 3 and move on, and we didn't take care of that.
He's over again. He's got room. And the Yankees have taken the Braves championship away.
3 years later, the Braves were back in the World Series. After losing the first 2 contests to the Yankees, they led 5-3 in the 8th inning of Game 3. A flu-ridden Tom Glavine remained on the mound.
Bobby Cox kept going with him and going with him, and throughout the game, reporters were saying, man, he's pushing Tom Glavine. Given that he had the flu, we're in the World Series, got to get some bullpen action going there.
I think Glavine, before he went out, said something to Bobby Cox as if, keep an eye on me. I'm starting to lose it a little bit.
He, in his way, encouraged me to try and go out there and go one more inning. And you know, in that situation, you're not going to fight it.
Swing and a fly ball to right field deep. Going back onto the warning track. Jordan, he's at the wall. He jumps up. It is gone. A home run. It's tied up.
There's no sense of urgency to his managing in the postseason. Bobby Cox has always said, I'm going to do it just the way I did it in the regular season. And I think sometimes that has cost him.
The Yankees went on to sweep the 1999 World Series. Over the next 6 seasons, the Braves failed to get past the first round 5 times.
When historians look back on this stretch of 14 consecutive divisional titles for the Braves, they're going to label this as the biggest underachieving team in the history of Major League Baseball.
Year in and year out, you look at the Braves and you come to expect, after so many years, failure. And I think it has taken away, certainly, from the legacy of Bobby Cox individually and from the franchise as a whole.
When you look at Bobby Cox's body of work, there's no doubt that he's got a mound full of October disappointments. He has to take blame for that.
In just a few minutes, we'll count down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Cox for the Braves' playoff failures. But first, here are a few reasons that missed the cut. We call them the best of the rest. Lonnie Smith. His base-running blunder in Game 7 of the 1991 World Series cost the Braves dearly. Smith was on first base with no outs in the 8th inning of a scoreless game against Minnesota when Terry Pendleton ripped a double to left center.
Lonnie Smith hesitates as he's coming to second base and loses track of the ball because the Twins' middle infielders, particularly Chuck Knobloch, pretend to be running a phantom double play.
I thought that Lonnie scored. I was very surprised when I turned around and looked over to check Jimmy Williams, our third base coach, and Lonnie was standing next to him.
He should score. He doesn't. That's the game that would have won the world title for the Braves, and the Twins win in extra innings.
I don't think you can blame Bobby Cox for losing the 1991 World Series. Sometimes players make bone-headed plays that the manager can't do anything about.
Another best of the rest, opposing pitchers. The Braves ran up against outstanding performances in the postseason.
Morris delivers. Can't take strike 3. A fastball. Got him looking.
Jack Morris pitched brilliantly against them in Game 7 in the 1991 World Series. Probably has to be considered one of the greatest pitched games in the history of the World Series.
Stretch him out, swinging to the Diamondbacks, won it.
If you go up against Arizona when they had Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling together, and you're going to face them 4 times in those 5 games, you're going to have a tough time winning that series.
Pitch from Wood, swing and a miss. Chipper Jones strikes out.
Kerry Wood was as close to unhittable as I've ever seen a pitcher out there.
Right down the middle. Struck him out looking.
You really have to look at who the Braves have been facing over the years. They've run into some of the greatest pitching that postseason has ever offered.
Bobby Cox. If it wasn't for the steady brilliance of their manager, the Braves wouldn't have won their 14 straight division titles.
I always gave Bobby the name the greatest, and I believe that. I believe Bobby Cox can outmanage every living soul you want to see.
He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's going to be remembered as one of the greatest managers to ever be part of baseball.
During Atlanta's record-setting run, Cox led his troops to 90 or more victories 13 times and a .606 winning percentage.
players love to play for him. They love to show up and give him everything that they've got because they know they've got his backing, and he's going to give them the opportunity to be successful.
He gives you confidence when you don't deserve it. He sticks with you. He doesn't talk about you in the paper. He takes all the bullets, and he basically is a guy you want to play for.
Without Bobby, good chance we don't get that far. We don't even get to the postseason in the first place.
You can't blame Bobby Cox for the fact that there is only one World Series. You can credit him for the fact that they've had the opportunity 14 years.
1 down, 4 to go. Here is reason number 4.
Mariano Rivera. For most of the Braves' success, they didn't have a dominating closer in the postseason.
Mariano Rivera, you could make a really good argument that he's the reason the Yankees dynasty was the Yankees dynasty.
Mariano Rivera was like going to the ATM. And the Braves didn't have a Mariano Rivera.
If Mariano Rivera is on the Atlanta Braves, the Braves have 4 or 5 World Series titles.
In Atlanta's 5 World Series appearances, the bullpen was responsible for 7 of its 18 losses. 2 of them were series-clinching games.
And once again, the Minnesota Twins are baseball's world champions.
That's one of the things about being a Braves fan. You just spend your entire October going, I'm really worried about the bullpen.
The pitch to Sprague. It's a drive. It's deep left field. It's way back. It's gone. Home run Ed Sprague on the first pitch that he sees from Jeff Reardon.
That's when you start having the first of that little, you know, that feeling, that hot orange juice in the back of your throat when you're gonna, you don't throw up, but you feel like you're going to.
And the 2-2 offering, high fly ball hit deep to left field. Andrew Jones back to the warning track, to the wall. This ball is gone. A 3-run homer for Jim Leyritz, and we are tied at 6.
Jim Leyritz, I mean, the powerhouse Jim Leyritz takes you deep. None of this has really torn my soul out. I just remember every detail of it. I don't know what it is with their relievers.
Except for Mark Wohlers and John Smoltz, and one season from John Rocker, Cox lacked a slam-the-door-in-your-face closer.
And they've had Alejandro Pena and Kerry Lightenberg and Jeff Reardon at the end and Greg McMurtry. I'm sorry, with all due respect, those are not top-quality closers. When you get to the postseason, you have to have somebody who pitch the 9th inning.
The Braves relievers have always been a bone of contention. That's not where they put a lot of their money, and it shows sometimes.
They'd had a signature closer. They're in the World Series more often, and they win more. I mean, they don't become baseball's version of the Buffalo Bills.
Damn Yankees. Half of Atlanta's World Series losses were to the Pinstripe Princes of New York.
Part of the reason you can't blame Bobby Cox for not winning all these World Series is because they have gone against the Yankees when they were at their absolute best.
Yankees win! No! Yankees win!
That first series, 96, that really started the Yankees dynasty. By the time the Braves faced the Yankees in 99, the Yankees were just at full motor running, and the Braves really had no shot in that World Series.
The 1999 World Champions are the New York Yankees!
The Yankees were awesome. I felt like there's times in the past we should have won, but you can't say we should have won this series.
Over a 5-year span, the Yankees captured 4 championships, going 16-3 in the Fall Classic.
You can't blame Bobby Cox at all. The Yankees of those days, we played so well, especially in the postseason, that we knew what it took to win, and we just found ways. We got the breaks. We played good baseball.
The 1-1 pitch. Swing, and there's a long high drive. Deep to left center. This one is on its way, and the Yankees have won it!
These guys always perform better in the postseason than they have in the regular season. Derek Jeter was the guy who seemed to be hitting a home run to wrap up a game. Tino Martinez was always great in the clutch. Scott Brocious came through in the clutch in the postseason.
This has nothing to do with the Braves' failure. In the case of those Yankee teams, they were pretty damn good.
3 reasons down, 2 to go. Here is reason number 2.
Rhett Butler. The famous character's last words in the classic movie set in Atlanta during the Civil War era exemplified the city's attitude towards the Braves.
Well, the quote in Gone with the Wind, "Frankly, I don't give a damn," could be a snapshot of how the Braves fans in Atlanta and around Georgia feel about their team. They don't care about anything.
We were playing the Cubs, and there was 45,000 people there. There might have been 25,000 Braves fans and 20,000 Cubs fans.
This big throng of Cubs supporters has given them a sellout crowd at Turner Field tonight.
I think as players, it aggravates you a little bit. I think you feel like there's a certain sense of the accomplishments that you've had as a team are kind of taken for granted a little bit.
While the Braves drew more than 2 million fans every year during their run, the fans didn't come out in droves in the postseason. From 1997 to 2005, only 5 of the Braves' 19 home games in the division series were sellouts.
I think you could blame the fans to a degree, and I think some of the players will say that. Obviously, they're disappointed when they take the field in a division series game, for example, and Turner Field isn't filled to capacity.
We were pretty upset and frustrated at the same time because here's the Braves team working hard, playing their best every single year to make it to the playoff. So when we saw the stand during the playoff, it is sad.
You would hope that anytime you get in the playoffs, no matter how many times in a row it is that you've done it, you would have a full house and have that kind of support. But for whatever reason down there, it hasn't happened.
The Braves were 5-13 in their last 18 home postseason games. In one 8-year stretch, they were eliminated 7 times from the playoffs at Turner Field.
For the 3rd consecutive year, the Atlanta Braves are forced to watch the visiting team celebrate on their diamond.
One of the things that you need in the postseason is energy. And a lot of that comes from the fans, But you know what? When you're the Braves and you've been in the postseason, there are no fans, at least when you're playing at home, and that's got to affect the team.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that perhaps the Braves' postseason success over this last decade and a half would have been much higher had Turner Field been filled every game.
Welcome back. You've seen now reasons 5 through 2 why you can't blame Bobby Cox for the Braves' postseason failures. Here is reason number 1.
Mr. October.
There's a fly ball to center field and deep. Reggie Jackson has hit his 3rd home run of the game.
The Braves never had anyone close to Reggie Jackson.
It wasn't an accident or a coincidence that the Oakland Athletics and the New York Yankees won pennants and World Series with Reggie Jackson on their team.
They didn't call him Mr. October for nothing, this guy delivered in the clutch when the game was on the line, when you needed him to come through, he was there.
In sports in general, it's been said that good players make great plays. Great players make great plays when it matters most. The Braves have been short of great players who have made great plays when it's mattered most, that being October.
The possible exception was David Justice in 1995. He stirred the drink when he called out the fans before Game 6 of the World Series.
Justice said that the Atlanta crowds were too sedate as compared to the crowds they had faced in Cleveland, and that they needed to wake up.
He was the guy who wasn't afraid to come out and rip the fans for not showing up in Atlanta.
In his way, David put the burden on himself to go out and perform that night, because certainly all eyes were on him.
Like Reggie, Justice delivered. The game was scoreless in the 6th inning.
Fastball swung on and belted. Deep right field. Back goes Ramirez. That ball is gone. Home run.
Justice's solo shot in the 6th against Cleveland's Jim Poole was the only run of the game. But it was all Tom Glavine needed. He gave up 1 hit in 8 innings.
Strikeout number 8 for Tom Glavine, and that's a career high in the postseason.
It's the greatest game I've ever pitched, and it was in a forum in which it enabled us to win a world championship.
In each of their 5 World Series appearances, the Braves' team batting average was lower than it was during the regular season. 2 of their 3 aces, Greg Maddux and Glavine, couldn't make up for their teammates' light hitting. They win a combined 23-28 in the postseason.
If the criticism needs to go anywhere, it's this execution of the Atlanta Braves players. We have not done the things you need to do to win those crucial games.
Outside of John Smoltz, the rest of those guys have not shown up. We're talking about Tom Glavine loses it, Greg Maddux loses it. It's like, what happened to these guys? You know, they're not the same pitchers.
Strike him out. Bobby Cox sent lineups out that were awesome lineups. Was pretty good for 6 months leading up to the playoffs. These guys got to hit in October. And at the end of the day, these guys didn't hit in October.
I don't think you can blame one man for the fault of 25 different guys on 14 different years and 14 different postseasons. It's just impossible.
Well, there you have it, the top 5 reasons you can't blame Bobby Cox for the Braves winning only one World Series. And whatever way you like to categorize your winners and losers, the Braves, under Cox and GM John Schuerholz, will always be associated with one of the more consistent runs of sustained excellence in the long history of Major League Baseball. I'm Brian Kenny. Thanks for watching.